going to invite just 2 or 3 questions, very short because the time has gone on. If there are any questions, comments, very briefly.
You know, it just crossed my mind. Do you see any correlation or any link with the exploits that the women's movement has made and male homosexuality?
The exploits, that's what you use?
The successes that you have made that have been achieved from the gender movement.
A correlation between that and homosexuality?
Yes,
you want
especially
to,
amongst men.
what do you mean?
Okay. All right, let me expound.
I can't see the link, so you have to expound for me.
All right.
You mean there were, hold on, do you mean homosexuality did not exist before the women's movement?
No, the promulgation that we see today.
Promulgation.
Yes.
Is it the women's movement that's promulgating it?
No, what I'm asking is this.
Yes.
The woman has always been seen as a gentle flower, very soft and delicate being. And that sort of stereotype has been very pervasive in society. And with the emergence now of the gender movement, you know, we are now talking about the rebel woman, and the image of this woman is one of strength, of character, of asserting a sort of image that counters
the gentle flower
stereotype. Yes. And I'm saying, a friend of mine said a man does not like a woman who is too strong. You know, she's not too strong, or show too much strength. You know, it's not very woman-like, or not very ladylike.
So repeat the question. The question.
So I'm saying
is.
I'm asking though.
Yes.
In relation to that, if you think there's any link whatsoever, any correlation.
Quick, short answer: no.
Okay.
Can I coach you a little? Watch the stories that others have made up, that become your own, and you repeat. It applies to all of us. A lot of storytelling was taking place there. Thank you very much. Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, everyone.
Hi.
It's so great to be here in Jamaica's 50th anniversary year, to hear an outstanding Jamaican woman talk about her story, which is our story. And I was particularly happy to be here because I think I've been in a lot of discussions over the last 10 years or so where the talk is about what has not been done in Jamaica. Jamaica is a land of failure. Nothing has been achieved. And it's very important to use this medium, but we really need other ways to, Beverly, you're no longer on the radio. Baby, there's nobody on the radio who understands these issues the way that you do. And there has to be a way that we communicate so that the young sisters actually have a sense of self-confidence based on their understanding of a struggle that has occurred to provide for them a great platform. And the young men, young brothers, understand that it is not an attack on them or anything negative for them to have to deal with strong young sisters. And so I don't know if you want to comment on that. You know, the sacrifices that were made earlier by women where you had to make very difficult choices. And the hope is that these young sisters and brothers don't have to make as difficult choices. Would you comment a little bit on that?
I think that we do need to have more space for these kinds of conversations. And when you think about it, we have so many cable channels now, so many radio stations. You know, it's just that sometimes the economic thing gets to us. We need to earn some money, or get some advertising support. But for myself, I'm looking seriously of going back on radio, with or without the financial support. This is one of the children, she don't look like that now, of the 70s, who should call that conference of children.
We plan to actually, we've been talking about it.
Just tell me when so I can get out of here.
I actually have a question which is reflective of that very same point that you raised. A couple of weeks ago I had the pleasure of reading an article about Jackie Creft and the role that she had played in the Grenadian Revolution and what ended up happening to the son that she had for Maurice Bishop, and he actually died just 17 years old in a fight in Canada.
Oh.
And he had a very traumatic childhood as a result of the death of both his parents in the Grenadian Revolution. And in high school, I also went to school with two of the Quard's children, two girls. And it led us to a reflection, not just, I guess you could say, the children of the 70s, on a conversation about the role of parenting when you are participating in social, actions for social justice or advocacy work for the betterment of society. So my question really is, in that reflection, what recommendations would you have for women and men who are parents, who do have that idea to continue that action? How to balance both? Because some of us would prefer to not allow our children to be sacrificed, and would prefer to do that rather than focus on the struggle per se. So in your reflection, what recommendations would you now have? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. You have an answer, Carol? Carol, you had an answer? Carol, did you have an answer? Oh. No, I think it's something I think about a lot. Maybe I should say I'm forced to think about a lot, because I have children in my life like Sarah and Natasha, not David. David said he was born after everything was over. He has no issues. He was born after 1980. He says, I was born after everything was over. What's the big deal? So, but Sarah and Natasha constantly. So make sure you involve them when you're doing the conference. But seriously, I think it's one of the things we have to think through. How we can build in some mechanisms for parenting. And sometimes, go back to the African thing, it takes a village. Maybe I'm not there for my child, but you're there. To think it through. We never thought it through as a strategy. We were so bent on getting everything done and quickly because the suffering out there was so horrible and so on. But I don't think either the women in the struggle or the men in the struggle really sat down and said, what is the impact on these children? Because, you see, like in my case, we used to go overboard. Natasha always had somebody staying for the weekend. You'd cover yourself. I used to put stories on tape, as you know, so when they were going off to bed, they were hearing my voice. We would take her with us, but that wasn't cutting it. Much more was needed. And maybe this is a way in which you, the children who went through all of that, particularly in the 70s, can really help us in terms of the impact on you. And it has to be a dialogue, not a quarrel, no, a dialogue between the parents and the children, with the parents willing to listen and the children willing to listen and enter each other's worlds. I think enough time has passed now for us to have that dialogue. And if you plan something, I'd love to be a part of it. Something I think about a lot, as you would imagine.
Okay, yeah. I recently had to articulate a concern that the very thing being rebelled against is paradoxically glorified in a way which, in my view, exemplified the masculinity of power. And you can disavow me of that thought, as we go along. You touched on it in your presentation. Women who break through, women who rise above the subjugation, right? Forget why they're there and do not do enough to make the way straight for other women. And then it doesn't help that the wife of the Secretary General of the United Nations, when questioned why 98% of the women in attendance at a UNAIDS conference last year explained that, in answering the question that was posed to her, why there are 98% of the person in attendance were women, she said, do you know who a woman is? A woman is a well-organized man. That's the wife of the United, right? How do you relate to...
Talk about a limited vision. No, let me hear specifically. What you say is interesting, but this specific question is, I'd like to get the specific question. What is the question?
Okay, no, I just saw a paradox in how, those who break through,
Yes?
they assume some of the very characteristics.
Oh, okay.
of those-
Yes, I got it. I think it was the Italian philosopher Gramsci who said that, in many cases the oppressed consent to their own oppression. It's a rough thing to say, but we are all living inside a patriarchal system. So it's not just going to impact on one gender, it's going to impact on both genders. And I think a lot of what you say is anecdotal. I'd like to see the data, because I do not believe that women who have made it do not nurture other women. I don't believe it. That's not my experience. I know it's a popular thing to say, but I'm not sure if the men nurture men. I don't know. But the point I'm making is that we're all living in this society where you have domination and subordination, and it is going to touch on all of us. And I don't want to be party to any kind of conversation. I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but I don't want to be party to any conversation that is going to blame women for anything. I'm not into blaming the victims. Thank you. Yes, Tricia.
Well, it's a question I would like to contribute to the conversation about the impact on the children of women who are contributing. And I'm broadening it to the impact of children of persons who are contributing to building. And two things. Is there a right way to parent? Is there a right result of parenting? And is any result of parenting wrong?
No right, no wrong. We do the best we can, but inside of doing the best we can, certainly for my generation, really think through more the impact. I just felt because I was looking after all the children, and I was doing my best, and not because I don't carry any guilt over it. But I would like to look at it again and see what's possible. Now you have to understand that Patricia is speaking from the perspective of somebody who wants to enter representational politics. And she has 3 children. So this is timely for her. And maybe your generation can do it differently, but I agree, there's no right or wrong way. I agree with that.
In your presentation, you spoke about the rebel women in the 70s and the rebel movements they made in the 70s. But what do you think accounts for kind of the simmering down of the movement when it comes to my generation? And what do you think accounts for us kind of thinking that all the problems have been fixed, so we don't need to be feminists anymore?
You have to answer that for me.
Personally, I see the need, but I feel with my colleagues, they're not really seeing what I see. So what do you think accounts for that?
I think that, because of the way the whole world has gone, there's a kind of individualism that's taking place that we didn't have in the 70s. I think that's a very important point, because in Jamaica, everybody wants to hold them corner. Everybody wants to hold the corner. But we grew up at a time when this ferment for transformation and change was present. We had a political administration that was open to it. Even when we criticized it, was open to it. So I think one of the major problems now is that for your generation is how to get people to start seeing each other as one again. That what impacts on you impacts on me, that we are all interconnected at some deep level. And I hope you hurry up and do it.
I can see, I am very happy to know that the discussion is moving along in the way that you mentioned that there needs to be some negotiation. And I think earlier, historically, there's a saying that the person with the golden rule is the people with the goal determine the rule. You know what I mean? So earlier, you used to have men who, because of there was a division of labor, while the women stayed at home and there was some harder work people had to till the soil, people had to do things. So they actually worked out a division of labor. No, but life has become much more easier, and I agree that we need to be moving closer to some form of negotiation in terms of the process. But one other thing is that in terms of women, equality, or gender equality, needs to begin at the home. People who are advocating for gender equality, I appreciate to know that you have a husband and a man who is advocating for that have a wife. You know what I mean? And you try to cultivate the children along that equal understanding.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We have one more question. Who was it? Sadia.
I'm very grateful for your presentation, Mrs. Duncan. Just to highlight the point you made where you encouraged university persons to actually live in rural Jamaica for a year. I certainly endorse it because I believe that's now the other Jamaica that needs some serious work. I'm from what we'd call country, and there's serious social and economic need in rural Jamaica that we need to explore. And I think the university is poised to take on such role. So I really endorse that suggestion and hope that Dr. Dunn will see what can be done to fulfill that vision.